Okay, well, I'll go ahead and start. Thank you very much, guys, for coming. This is very exciting. Good to see many people unmasked for a change. In fact, I've met quite a few people in the last few months, and I may not even recognize them after the pandemic is going away. So I'm here basically to offer my energy to you, and it's pretty safe to do virtually. I have a lot of energy when it comes to arts, and my whole life I sought the adequate way to use my energy. Basically, I bring it to the table, and I see what happens then. I do not plan my art, at least now. I've tried planning my art. In fact, I've been trained to plan my art. And it comes out boring, stilted, at least to me. I never enjoyed the process. And if I don't enjoy the process, what's the point? So it's all about the process for me. I've been trained in Moscow. I'm from Moscow, Russia. I was born and raised there. Went to the Moscow Institute of Architecture, where architect is trained in a very traditional way, like a Beaux-Arts type of training. It's very academic drawing. One whole day out of every week of the entire curriculum of 6 years was dedicated entirely to drawing first copies of Greek sculptures and then live models starting during the second year. Pretty extensive painting, but painting was limited to older painting, and pretty much it stopped at, I would say, beginning of the 20th century. And even architecture course stopped about there too. And then there was a very special course called Architecture of Capitalistic Countries. So it was kind of fun. Of course, in underground, we were able to see Art in America and Art News and magazines that had more modern art, but we were not taught it. I'm grateful for my wonderful, wonderful academic background, but it was never enough for me. I had to be on my own, to go my own route, to see how my emotions could be channeled outside of the academia, outside of my trained hand. I'm trained figuratively. The perspective was drilled into me, correct proportions, the anatomy. So I came to this country when I was 26. I was in California, in the Bay Area first. By then I already acquired my favorites. Chaim Soutine and Edward Munch were the two favorite artists for me. Just for the emotion, I saw how they used the medium to convey their own emotion, how they could just put their interior landscape onto the canvas. And it felt healing actually to even watch. And I'm sure it was healing to them. In Berkeley, in seeking the community, the artists community, I signed up for a couple of classes. From one class, I was thrown out because the teacher said, I cannot teach you anything in this class. It was probably too low for me on the hierarchy. But the other class was by an expressionist, Leah Hyams. She was a wonderful teacher, and she taught us how to put acrylics into a storage bin with little compartments in there. So basically you take a tube with paint and you squeeze out. Each paint has its own compartment, and you close it and you open the box when you need it, and you dip the brush into the color, and then you paint and then you close the box. When I squeezed out the paints into that box and I saw the colors looking at me, that was electric. That was amazing. I've always enjoyed colors. Fall is amazing for me. When I look out a window and see a yellow tree, they're gone now, but I feel the vibration. I feel how healing it is on my eyes. I want to say I feel the frequency of colors. But using just colors was never enough for me. I'm not that type of personality who just creates adjacencies of colors, and some people really enjoy it. I have much more energy than just manipulating colors. I've been drawing my whole life since I was 3, and for me, visual art is drawing. Even when I paint, I draw. When I place colors, I break it up with lines, with pretty forceful lines, and the lines do create forms. So I started seeking how to combine my love of color with my energy, and the next 2-3 decades were spent seeking. And I suspect I'll be seeking my whole life. I don't think that this world is actually created for having found something. This world is for seeking, and you keep seeking and you keep seeking, and thank God it's that way. Even though I'm not happy with it. It's uncomfortable to keep seeking, but that's the only way that I know. Let me bring you into the exhibition right now. I basically explained that I bring a lot of energy to the table. Let me share the screen. Okay. Welcome to my 3D exhibition. Well, history behind this exhibition. I had several shows lined up in 2020, one in March, then I had a retrospective coming up in May. I was so excited, and the title for the upcoming March show was In Your Face. I was proud of that title, and it made sense to me, and it was a clever title because I've been painting portraits lately, and I call them abstract portraits, but I paint not the exterior, but I imagine myself behind the facade, but inside of the person's, whatever it is, brain, psyche, emotions, and I paint the inside of the person. So In Your Face title was descriptive of what's shown, but also I wanted to get into the world's face. But the world thought otherwise. The world said, no, let me get in your face. And things started changing. The pandemic came, and there was social unrest. The whole world felt like a big experiment with nobody knowing what to do. Best minds could not agree on solutions. So I spent 2 months in lockdown, or however many months we sat home in Chicago. It's pretty hard for me because I'm a high energy person. I seek by doing, I seek by moving, I think by doing. I don't plan ahead, I just start. Once I started, I'm taking my own road. And sitting at home doing small artworks was kind of interesting. I called it pushing the limits a little bit and getting outside of my comfort zone, but that's not me. So after spending some time at home and lamenting the departure of both exhibitions, I went back into the studio, into my large studio. Right now I'm sitting in my smaller studio. And I've discovered that I've accumulated tons of energy, a lot of accumulated energy, and it felt somewhat different. I wasn't aware consciously of that. I just started painting like I always would. I just love being working on a large format. So let me just introduce you to a couple of paintings just as an introduction to the energy. This one is called Do You Want to Come Out or Not? By the way, the titles hurt me sometimes. The titles, it's almost like a separate business. It does create a literary association, and having English as a second language, I don't always feel what the viewer here feels. I thought of titling them in Russian, but not sure if that would work well. So as you can see, things are just being pulled and squashed, and distorted in various directions. Let's see if we can come out a little closer before it gets pixelated. But this particular painting kind of has a center of gravity in the middle. It has a feel of a head, to me at least. Let me move to the next painting. This painting is completely exploded. It feels to me like a part of an infinity. It can go to the right, to the left, to the bottom, to the top. Yet, to me, it's a portrait. It's a portrait that encountered the world. By the way, all these paintings have been painted since 2020 started, and there's a few older paintings that are placed in this exhibition just for comparison. They were done in 2019 and pre-pandemic, and I'll just compare the styles. So in this one, I brought my energy to the table, and I started coming up with 3D without even being aware of it. Things are kind of receding, and the space is going through it and exploded, and it's pretty violent to me, but also optimistic because it's airy. And that blue color, I don't know, to me it offers hope. It's almost like a sky there, but the lines are suspended, and I think, I don't analyze what I do it and then I look at it. I think the lines are so suspended in a space that they convey the uncertainty of the world right now, and I feel it in my spine. I don't feel it in my head sometimes. I just say things are good, no problem. But when I start painting, this anxiety comes out. Let me go into the main room. Okay, so the way the main room is done, the painting, this one on the left is the pre-pandemic painting. In fact, Mel may recognize the painting. I was showing it at his venue a year ago. This is an older painting with a blue background. This is an older painting. And this orange is a 2019 painting. In fact, let me just get a little closer to these two. This one is called Making Troubles in My Head. In fact, I think all the troubles are made in the head. No matter what's going on outside, it's all in my attitude. So whatever troubles were outside, one person may feel it's unsafe to go outside. The other person says, no, this is great, I want to go outside. So it's our decision how to interpret. So this is the portrait in the current newer style, and the portrait next to it is from my 2019 pre-pandemic style. And there's a significant difference here. The one on the right is a portrait of Haim Sutin. It's an interior portrait. Basically, it's about the individuality. It's like a person against the world, but it's more metaphysical. It's the person's interior landscape with its doubts and uncertainties, but it's placed on a painted background. It seems like the person is still somewhat together here, even though the person may oppose itself to the world. But the person on the orange background sort of has nowhere to go. It's almost trapped in the metaphysics. This one, however, the world and the individual collided. That's how it feels to me. And what's interesting that in the right painting here, every line contributes to the whole. Every line does something to shape, to create a form. In this one, it fell into a bunch of little things, and that's how my body painted it without me processing it. So there's several paintings underneath the final image. Let me get a little closer. every little stroke and shape seeks its own form. Before it got pixelated, let me see. I hope you can see it on your background. Some colors become three-dimensional. This one becomes transparent, and you want to go behind it. So it's a bunch of individual shapes adding up to still a feel of a portrait, but they're all kind of discrete, percussive. So, and I think it reflects what's going on in the world right now. I was hugely influenced by music. My whole life I was thinking that I've been saying I'm not a musical person. I love music, but as far as painting, music always got in the way of me creating. I always asked people to turn off the music. Maybe I've been always too sensitive to music. Let's go to this one. I discovered Freeform Jazz. I discovered it at the John Corbett Gallery. John Corbett loves music, especially the music which invents form as it's being played. The moment the form or the tune becomes something you can grasp, it immediately wipes it off and moves on to the next one. So this painting was done inspired by two wonderful musicians, Paul Nielsen Love. He's a percussionist, he's a drummer, and Joe McPhee. Joe McPhee is a wonderful, he's like a saxophone player, because I've seen him with saxophone most of the time. This painting is done in kind of naive, straightforward colors, bright yellow, reds, oranges, has kind of Kandinsky feel to it, but it's fairly simple. And I think what inspired me, even though I didn't say at the moment of painting this painting, I was at the concert done by Paul Nielsen Love at the gallery, and his face was so concentrated and he was totally inside of himself before the concert. At the end of the concert, it was a different person. I looked at his face, and it was satisfied. He felt relaxed. He looked slightly pink. The person has done his job. He meandered through his drumming, through pretty violent drumming sometimes. But at the end, he looked so satisfied. He looked like a little baby. So I tried to follow that route too. Some of it is like pretty violent. These slashes here, whiplashes, and lines start and change the direction. But overall, it's a fairly naive feel to it. Let me go to a video. There's a recording of me working on a portion of this painting. I'll turn it on for just maybe a brief moment, but let me share the sound first. Just a second. Share computer sound. Let me get back the sound. Okay, I think if you're interested, you can watch it on your own. It's a few minutes. But I think it illustrates pretty well how I paint, not exactly with my eyes, not even with my hands, maybe with the spine. I've heard that musicians, when they achieve certain level of proficiency, they play with their back. So sometimes I feel in my back better, with my back better than I feel with my hands or with my eyes. In fact, the eyes could be very, very deceiving. I think I've been speaking probably long enough. Let me just zoom in on a few paintings and open maybe for questions or comments. This painting is called "I Thought I Was Alone." And this is the one that it kind of welcomes you to follow the line, but the line is so percussive and rhythmic, and starting and stopping, it creates this kind of disturbance. But for me, following the line is pretty soothing, except I want to interrupt it, of course. But I followed the line since I was little. I go from detail towards the large composition. Let me see if I can get closer. Yeah. By the way, there's a little bit of a pumice here, which I try, a little bit of a texture that I added. I try not to complicate too much my tools. I don't want to just follow the material too much. I'm more into transference of energy. So my tools are pretty simple. They're acrylic paint right now. They are graphite. You can see some lines that go through here. And there was a little bit of pumice here. But basically, it's paint and graphite lately. Let me stop sharing so I could see part, or maybe I'll keep it. Let me see if I can. No, I can't. Let me go back to this view, and I saw Victoria raised her hand. Let's see if I can unmute you. Unmute. Victoria, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So I have a question, 3 different things. One is, do you paint on canvas or paper?
I do both. I love paper. I love canvas. I paint on loose canvas before I stretch it. I need to feel the resistance of the substrate. So painting on panels is kind of clunky and it's too expensive. So I pin the canvas to the wall, and once it's done, I stretch it later. Paper, I love how the brush slips across the paper. It certainly brings certain motion, makes it a little more smooth. But canvas offers more resistance. But what you see here, it's all canvas.
Okay, so, and then the second one was about, when you were growing up in Russia and your education, and you said it was also very traditional and really kind of stilted. And but what I'm curious about is the Russian constructivist period in Russia was amazing, and it was, you know, very abstract and very modern. And did they not teach you that?
That's an excellent question. Thanks for knowing that, actually. That's very cool. Because it was Russian, it was taught to us, especially because it happened after the October Revolution in 1917. There was a revolution, and all the constructivism happened after the revolution. In fact, a lot of it was inspired by the revolution because people felt the new world is opening up. So it stimulated a lot of minds. Some of them are brilliant architects. So yeah, we were taught that. And in fact, I think a lot of world architects, some leading architects, are still feeding off the discoveries of the Russian constructivism from the 20th century.
It's one of my favorite periods of art, and there was a really big show about it. I think it was at the Art Institute or the MCA? I can't remember. I think it was at the MCA. Did you see that show? The Russian constructivist show?
I don't remember. I might have.
It was really wonderful. But then the third thing I have to say is that your work reminds me of, it's like controlled chaos, especially the new pieces. So I think it really reflects the chaos of the time period we're in now.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Victoria. Yeah. Jerry, you'll have to confirm the unmute. Go ahead.
Yeah. The image that you showed where you were painting to music, where can we find that?
Let's see. You mean in the exhibition?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I mean, where can we watch it and listen to?
Oh, okay.
What's the link, in other words?
So if you, so in the exhibition, if you're able to just go to my website, at the home page, you'll be invited to this exhibition. It's pretty straightforward. You just go dimitripavlotsky.com.
Okay.
First thing you see on the home page, it says, I forgot what it says exactly, but you cannot miss it. It says, well, enter the virtual exhibition.
Okay.
If you open another window, there'll be a couple of instructions and you'll be there. So it'll start with a view, something like this. You go in. So in the show, the painting I was talking about is here on the left.
No, it's the one where you personally are in the painting.
And the video is opposite to it. See it in this corner?
Yes.
So if you are virtually within the exhibition, you go to it, you can either click on it or you can come close to it. It'll start playing. So if you click on it, see it start playing.
Yeah. All right. And also I have a question. In that image, that brief image that you showed, you were obviously you have gloves on, which is great, but you were not using brushes. What were you using to apply your paint to the canvas?
Yeah, very good, Jerry. Thanks for the question. I've used brushes my whole life, but when I realized that sometimes the brush takes me in a weird direction of a trained hand, I know how to use the brush, and also the brush immediately creates something anatomically correct and builds a perspective for me. And I start showing off a little bit my skills, and that bravado kind of took me the wrong route. So I started tripping that brush, and I've used all kinds of dirty rags, and I started mixing up materials that should not be mixed, mixing oil and water-based paints and things like that. So what I'm using there, I think those are a piece of cloth or maybe a paper towel, something like that. Yes, it is not a brush. However, this painting was started with a brush.
Have you ever used sponges?
I don't like the sponge because it has its own elasticity, and I want something that I can crumble in my hand. I want as direct of a push into the canvas, transferring from my body, through my arm into my hand and to the canvas. I'm afraid the sponge would act almost as a brush, almost like a buffer, and I wouldn't. I've never tried it, but I suspect it may have this reaction.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Let me stop sharing. Okay, let me lower your hands. Well, Lilach is raising her hand, not virtually, but visually. Let me ask her. Oops, I'm on mute. Where did she go? Lilach, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, congratulations. This is awesome. This is my first guided tour in a virtual exhibit. What an initiative. Congratulations on this. That's awesome. It was really interesting to hear you explain everything and hear about your process and about how you discovered that you want to work with music. I've seen you in one of these performances. It was really fascinating. And I think I also mentioned Kandinsky, who also worked with music and talked about music. It's really lots of different you talk about a lot of different references, and it makes it really relevant to what you're looking for, but also connect with the art world and art history in a very meaningful way, I think. It was really interesting for me to see the old, what you called old, which is only a year ago, paintings from 2019 and the new ones from 2020. And it was fascinating to see both of them next to each other and hear you explain. I felt like the new ones are so different. There are, they have depth in them instead of flat surfaces, like flat backgrounds. They're more airy and more energetic, and they feel less stuck and less frozen. And it's really interesting because you made them in a time where you were confined to certain spaces, but they just talk about energy, and the energy is just exploding in them, and they're just moving in space. It's really interesting. And I was wondering about that, if everything looks like it's moving all the time, and you have them in a certain size and frame, which I think is really great. I'm not saying it's not effective, but do you ever think about breaking the frame, or just expanding, or beyond the square? I don't know if it's relevant.
I've tried. In fact, James Yu, the Chicago critic, when he was alive, he suggested that to me once. He said, just don't limit yourself to the edge. Thanks a lot, by the way, for your wonderful feedback. It's great to hear from another wonderful artist, a very spiritual person. I always compose. I feel a little lost when there is no edge. And I don't know if it's a limitation or if it's a strength. I know I destroy quite a lot. It looks like I'm kind of violently painting something, and I want to destroy more than I build, but I always build and destroy it. And my seeking is by moving. And well, like my three values, if I had to name them, one is seeking, the other one is doing, basically seeking by doing, not by planning or thinking. And the third one is form. Form is the third value. So I always seek form. So I don't just kind of seek out there. So the form kind of gives some framework for my seeking. And it's almost like I need the edge to know after which point I'm going to just fall down onto the three whales or whatever holds our earth now. If the bigger the canvas, the more I will try to fill it up. So if you unroll 10 yards of canvas for me, I'll keep filling it up and I'll find the edge anyways. So, but you're not the first one who mentioned that. Thank you.
No, it's a great tension. It's something like to have a limitation that you have to consider. That's
exactly. Yeah, it's almost I need the limitation. Otherwise, my own freedom will just kill me quickly. It's just too much of a seeking without the form. Thanks, Lila. Scott, go ahead.
I had two things. In going back to the first painting, if you could put it back up.
Sure. This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I getting piano keys?
Mm-hmm.
This is an excellent observation. First of all, you're not getting the piano piece, no.
To restore the soul of America, to rebuild the backbone of this nation, the middle class.
Somebody's listening to the TV.
Respected around the world again.
We'll have to
Mute him.
Hey, Julia, can you mute folks?
It's the honor of my lifetime that so many millions of Americans have voted for that vision. And now the work of making that vision is real.
What is this sound?
It's Joe Biden.
Yeah, but where does it come from?
I muted the person.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Julia. Cool. These objects that look like man-made objects, I assume you're referring to, I don't know, Scott, if you are muted now or not. Maybe Julia.
No, I can be heard now. I unmuted myself.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I assume you're referring to these black lines here, right?
Yeah, they're, and then above it and to the left. And then it looks almost like with this gray here that it's almost like a hand. So that could just me being Scott, the guy who wants to impose a representation on the unrepresentational. But on the other hand, it could actually be some kind of a piano thing, like maybe you're listening to music.
That's, yeah, that probably would be too direct for me. If I'm listening to piano, I probably wouldn't paint piano. I do it kind of in a roundabout way. But presence of these objects has interesting history to it. I used to paint only organically. Every line was kind of curvilinear because in a human anatomy, you just don't see that. And since I paint mostly, at least lately, portraits and heads and torsos and humans, there was no straight lines unless they were needed for the energy occasionally. But I'm doing an exercise once a week. I started doing it a couple of years ago. I call it Thursday morning exercise. No matter what body of work I create at the time, I always stop everything and I do an artwork in which I allow myself only to go forward, and I tell the critic to completely shut up. It's like a little experiment, and most often it's different from what I'm working on, whatever series I'm working on at the time. So these shapes started appearing in those Thursday morning exercises, and those exercises are different because I don't allow myself to go back in those exercises. When I do other paintings, I go back and forth. I never erase, by the way, I always add, but I destroy by applying further layers to the previous layers, so the later layers kind of drown out the layers underneath. So on Thursday mornings, I go only forward, so I don't erase, I don't cover things up, I don't muddy them up, as I call it. So there's a whole series of paintings and drawings that are very different. And man-made shapes like the black ones started appearing on those mornings for me, and I have no idea what they mean. Maybe the next clash is human against machine. In fact, in several paintings, kind of man-made objects appear now. But I'm pretty proud of this method, even though method could become a crutch too. But I like it so far. On Thursday morning, what I do is like almost like a little scouting detachment, maybe on horses, and a big Napoleonic army, heavy and clunky and powerful, marches, and that's my main body of work. But in the meantime, this cavalry kind of zips back and forth, you know, in all kinds of directions, discovering new things, and reports back to the commander. And then we'll see if the army will take the information and whatever it does with it. So those shapes started those mornings, and I have no idea what they mean. I'll need to deal more with them, but in my head, it was not the piano. But thank you very much for your.
Yeah, I mean, it could also, I suppose, be like a wall or any kind of hard thing, hard, real thing. My other question is kind of, my memory is not good since I was at a Kandinsky exhibition in Wisconsin, I don't know how many years ago. And at the time, I learned a whole lot about it, but I pretty much forgot everything. I was curious in connection with the question you had previously about was constructivism in your educational past. whether or not Kandinsky would have been, or whether he would have been disapproved, or what kind of relationship you would have had to that type of work, or to him.
Wow, you touched on something that I dealt with a while back. A lot of people love Kandinsky, and I'm not sure I love him. He's certainly a master of color. What bothers me is his whole theory of spirituality. I think back then, in the beginning of the 20th century, there was just the whole old world was completely being destroyed, and new world was shaping up, and everybody was inspired to assign spirituality to so many various things. In fact, Malevich created this whole manifesto around his black square, which now kind of reads stupid, basically how the painting is dead. So anyways, somehow when I read what Kandinsky said, it doesn't touch me right now. But you're asking about the painting. Sorry, I went on this diatribe.
No, that's good. And to what extent he was something that they would do or wouldn't do in your art school?
Yeah, I see. I probably didn't hear your question very well. He was mentioned. He was not taught too much. He went abroad, so to speak, and worked in Germany, and was hardly Russian, actually, and hardly Soviet. So we knew Kandinsky, of course. He was not taught, because basically what he started is the abstract art. Some people say he was created the first abstract artwork, which some people actually argue with that. And abstract was the enemy's art. So there was no abstract in Soviet Russia, even though there was one, but it was a dead end for the Soviet Russia. So he was not taught. I wish he was, so I would have dealt with him sooner instead of my grown-up age. So
that's kind of the sense I got from it. In what you were saying a moment ago, I do recall while I was at the exhibit seeing these massive books he wrote that were very complicated.
Yeah, he was a big scientist in arts. His big theories are, I think they kind of made his own art too heavy. In my view, of course, I'm sure a lot of people love him, consider him a teacher and even spiritual teacher. I don't know, they're too heavy, they're too calculated, I think. They're not mad enough, not wild enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think I'm Kandinsky on drugs or something. I'm showing the painting much wilder. I know this chronologically, this was the last painting I did. Basically here, every spot is standing on its own. Every spot doesn't want to contribute anything to the whole. They're all different. Some are lines, some are squashes, splatters. There are elements in the upper right corner. There are kind of inorganic elements with these red spots here. Well, this is very organic. So in my opinion, I think this is more modern to me. Kandinsky would probably would take me backwards a little bit, at least in my estimation.
Yeah.
Let's see. Julia, do you see anybody else raising the hand?
Let me check.
I do raise my hand. I do raise my hand. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Zhenya.
Great. Jim, you know what interesting? I kind of always feel energy in your pieces. Energy, probably less structure or composition, but I kind of feel it still. It's really great to, when you talk and you can channel my feeling and thoughts in some more specific way. You know, either it's there are many points on the piece, and kind of like you said previously, just you talking about piece, like there are many pieces independent from each other, or there is another piece with obvious kind of center of weights. Still, it's really good to hear about this. It kind of helps to, for me, to feel them deeper. Interesting. Actually, somebody thought about what if would be not framed, but just in a space you work without frames. It is probably kind of hard, but still our mind work in frames somehow, one or another. But I can imagine probably any of your pieces, let's say in a much bigger scale, 10 times, 100 times, whatever, and it would look great. It's kind of, I can see this, I can see this kind of in big scale would be interesting. So maybe sometime graphical way or so in the sky.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny.
So that's what I could say.
I still need my arms to reach. So past certain size, I'll have to use broomsticks and I don't know, telescopic, whatever, brushes. That probably will change what I do, but certainly worth trying. Unframed or unstretched may not work for me, because when you start seeing the cloth, the edge of the cloth, not the hard edge of the stretcher bar, the painting becomes about something else. It becomes about fabric. I don't know, I think it will distract from my energy, from my own energy. This is about my energy, and you go inside of that framed, you go inside of my world here within the hard edge frame, so this has to limit. Imagine this is fabric around, maybe painted, it'll be something different. Yeah, but thanks, Jenny. I think 2 people raised hands.
Yeah, I did.
So I don't see the participants now.
I see Tatiana Gromova.
Oh,
Yes.
Tanya, hello.
Yes. Hi, hello from Houston. Hello, everybody. And Dimitri, I really enjoy and appreciate your art. It's so beautiful. My question is, and maybe I asked it already, or maybe you already have those questions many times before, but as an artist, how do you know that your piece of work is done or it's completed? Like until you're exhausted, or there's something else? Could you please a little bit elaborate on that? Thank you.
Yeah, outstanding question. And thanks for coming, Tanya.
Sure.
There are several moments, several criteria when the painting could be finished. The way I paint, the moment I add something to the painting, it calls for something else to respond. And this dance can go on forever. So I add a line here. Since I'm composing and shaping all the time, the moment I add something somewhere, I want to do something else to the rest of it. And there's usually a time when I added something and I just don't know what else to add. And that means I need to at least pause and come back to it later, maybe next day, maybe in 2 weeks, maybe actually in a few months. And then when I come back to the second time, if it's still finished, looks finished, then I finish. The other one, sometimes I'm just stopped by, I don't know by what. I paint and paint and paint. All of a sudden I have this rising feeling through my body into my head. It's like, wow, I'm just so satisfied right now. Hopefully I look like Paul Nielsen Love at the end of his concert, kind of happy and satisfied and look like a baby. Yeah, the person has done his work and he's in his place. He's doing what he should be doing. And the third criteria, since I'm about the process and what I do is about process, not about really the result. If I feel like I've spent so much time on the canvas and I'm just, I've enjoyed enough of doing and I may be tired, or maybe I just decide, okay, this will be about just a stretch of me doing something and I'm going to stop, and becomes sometimes maybe it may not look like a finished piece, but to me it's just a sampling of what I've been feeling at the time. So I don't know if this answers your question, but that's the best I can do now.
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.
Jerry's raising hand.
Yeah,
Oh, hi, Jerry. Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't see you.
no problem. Hey, do you paint on raw canvas or prepped canvas?
Yeah, I've tried both. I do paint on primed canvas. I buy it on a roll, primed on one side, and then I cut it and I stretch it. The raw canvas trips me so much, too much. It shows the texture too much, so I need a little bit of a layer under my tools to slip on, at least somewhat.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. This one was titled Autumn. Okay, I see 3 hands raised. Julia, can you please unmute one?
I think I'm on mute now.
Yes.
You're unmuted.
Okay, I have a short question, Dim. Maybe I'm wrong, but looks like you haven't used the square format before. And I see now a lot of square paintings, or they look like a square.
Very interesting. Yes, there is square.
But I don't remember before you using like square paint as a format.
You're right. Square is a difficult.
Yeah, it's a kind of a special format, and why? And you know, it's I know why some other artists use the square, but what about you?
Yeah, square always scared me, even from architecture. Square is a self-contained form, shape, is equal, it's static, and it's so hard to compose on it and keep the composition dynamic. So maybe I just wasn't ready, and now I feel like I can take on a square. I don't know, but thanks for, yeah, actually I have about, let's see, I have 5 or 6 square paintings now, and I purchased a whole box of 16 by 16 panels. So I'm planning more squares. Stay tuned.
So 16 by 16 inches, right?
Correct, inches.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, these are 16 by 16 inches.
Another question, and I still don't know how to ask it, but you've mentioned that most of the paintings are kind of the portraits.
Sorry.
Did I understand you right? That those are the portraits.
Yeah, everything is a portrait here.
Okay, so it's like kind of, as far as I understand, it's kind of a metaphysical portrait, or did you have somebody in mind when you paint them?
Yeah, that's excellent. I always keep myself in mind.
So still the self-portrait.
So, but there's 2 people I keep in mind all the time. It's me and my wife. And sometimes I'm aware of the presence of the other in my paintings. And this one is called 2 in 1. Some people see, some people don't see 2 portraits here. It's like one over the other. The outlines, these outlines is one portrait created out of these lacy lines, and the darker one is me. I do not, I used to paint philosophers actually and thinkers of the 20th century, but I went through that series pretty quickly. And now I paint maybe like an emotional concept or something. No, none of these are specific people.
And if you compare this kind of, okay, let's call them abstract portraits or still the like kind of abstract shapes. If you compare with your portraits, figurative, was it was it I'm sorry, what is the difference between them, like for you, what is the difference between like these portraits and your previous works depicting people?
When I painted more figuratively and when you could recognize who is painted?
It doesn't matter if I could recognize or not, but still I knew it was, I know it was a process for you. You always redo what you paint, and like kind of sometimes at the beginning it was possible who is depicted, but then it's, the person is changed. So it still was, I think for you it was more like the process was more important, no?
I don't want if I understand the question correctly, I want to eliminate the associations with the specifics. I want just the general feel of the portrait. And I want the viewer to be more active and I don't want to railroad the viewer. So the viewer, in fact, Scott was even seeing a piano, which I love. I want the viewer to think into what he or she sees, whatever is in the viewer's head. So when it's something with more details and specificity, the viewer will just look at it as an illustration, as opposed to me sharing the energies and me going behind the facade, so to speak. I don't know, something like that. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
But if we compare it with figurative portraits, what is the difference between these and figurative?
I think the danger with figurative is that figurative may become an illustration of something else, because we're designed to seek something figurative and something recognizable. So when you start grasping that and start recognizing, I see it, I see a person, even if you feel that it's either a man or a woman, or that's probably too much for me. I want not to illustrate, but I want to share my own feelings. And I want to stop there. It's about movement, energy, and seeking, and uncertainty, and suspension, and reactions to the world, as opposed to doing the features, describing the features of a person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.
So what philosophers did you paint?
Is it Scott?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I painted mostly existential philosophers of the 20th century. I painted Jean-Paul Sartre. In fact, it's still hanging in my living room, in our living room. I painted Albert Camus, painted Noam Chomsky. It doesn't mean I liked all of them, but if they interested me, at least their face, I painted them. And I was trying to, I don't know, I always imagine a philosopher as an anguished individual. I can, I have a lot of joy and I have a lot of anguish at the same time. So by trying to go inside of their head, I was trying to see if I can just identify the anguish. So anyways, those were the three. I painted actually Leon Trotsky a while back. So, And
God
I
forbid.
painted versions of them. It wasn't just like one of each. So
You I hope destroyed them.
no,
Leon.
they're
Yeah,
still
just Leon. The other ones you can keep. Let me ask this then. I'm beginning to get an idea here with figurative as against non-figurative. From your involvement with philosophy, is the idea with figurative that when you're creating the imaginative figure, that's the pathway to creating an idol, and you're trying to get away from the idol and get back to the real energy that we want to turn into idols?
Yeah, this is a religious terminology, which I don't mind. And certain subjects I would not touch. I don't know if I never thought of it that way, that I'm trying to avoid the idol and I go to the substance.
Yeah, substance,
What
form, spirit.
exactly? What's behind the image, the recognizable form? So getting behind the scenes, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, let me lower Tanya's hand and Scott's hand.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Well, I think we should be wrapping up before I overstayed the welcome here. Thank you very much for coming. Let me get back to me. This was wonderful. Thanks, guys, for your amazing questions. Good to see everybody. I'm just scrolling through the participants. Good to see you on Saturday night, and to be continued.